A sudden collapse. The dull thud of a body hitting a stone floor. Gasps from the crowd, rapidly dissolving into a stunned, breathless silence. A man who only moments before was standing proudly before his peers, offering a heavy bag of silver, now lies entirely lifeless at the feet of the fishermen who lead this radical new movement. And the most terrifying detail of all, no one has laid a finger on him. They lied, and they dropped dead. This is not the grim aftermath of a battlefield. It is a gathering of the earliest Christian believers in first-century Jerusalem. It is a community defined by its radical love, its profound generosity, and its unbreakable unity. Yet in the shadows of this newly formed sanctuary, two people made a quiet, calculated decision. A decision that introduced a deadly fracture into a sacred space. To understand why a single lie warranted such a devastating conclusion, we must first look at the fragile world these early believers inhabited. It is the early 30s AD. The dust of the crucifixion and the reported resurrection has barely settled in Jerusalem. The followers of Jesus of Nazareth, now numbering in the thousands, are living in a precarious state of grace. They are a minority sect, closely watched by the temple authorities who hold the power of life and death. To survive, they turn entirely to one another. According to the Book of Acts, this new community shares everything. Those who own land or houses are selling them, bringing the proceeds and laying them at the feet of the apostles. The money is then distributed so that no one among them is in need. It is an economic and social revolution. Imagine the immense social honor bestowed upon those who make these sacrifices. We read of a man named Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, whom the apostles nicknamed Barnabas, meaning son of encouragement. He sells a field, brings the money, and presents it to the leaders. The gratitude of the community is palpable. Barnabas is respected, he is admired. And from the edges of the crowd, another couple watches. Their names are Ananias and Sapphira. They too own property. They too desire the warmth of the community's admiration. They want the prestige of the sacrifice, but they are terrified of the vulnerability it requires. So they devise a compromise. It is a quiet conversation, likely held behind the closed doors of their home. Ananias and Sapphira agree to sell a piece of their property, but rather than offering the full amount, they decide to keep a portion of the money for themselves. Crucially, keeping the money was not their crime. The land belonged to them. Once sold, the silver was entirely theirs to control. The early church did not operate a mandatory tax. This was a voluntary community. The sin they are about to commit is theater. They agree to present their partial donation as though it were the entire sum. They want to be seen as martyrs to the cause without actually paying the price. They are attempting to manufacture grace. And so the trap is set. Ananias takes the silver. He walks through the winding, sun-baked streets of Jerusalem, carrying the heavy purse, preparing his expression of pious humility. He steps into the gathering of believers. He approaches Peter, the undisputed leader of the apostles, and lays the money at his feet. Ananias waits for the praise. He waits for the honor. Instead, he is met with a piercing, unyielding gaze. The atmosphere in the room shifts instantly. Peter does not offer gratitude. Guided by a profound spiritual clarity, he sees straight through the performance. In the 5th chapter of Acts, Peter's words break the silence. His tone is not enraged, but chillingly measured. Ananias, he asks, why did you let Satan take control of your heart and make you lie to the Holy Spirit? Ananias freezes. The words echo in the courtyard. Peter continues, dismantling the illusion piece by piece. He reminds Ananias that the property was his to keep and the money was his to spend. The indication falls with devastating precision. You have not lied to human beings, you have lied to God. There is no time for a trial. There is no opportunity for an excuse. The moment Peter finishes speaking, Ananias collapses. The life leaves him instantly. The text records that great fear came upon all who heard about it. The terrifying reality of the divine, not as a distant, abstract concept, but as a burning, present purity, has manifested in their midst.
Some young men stepped forward into the heavy silence. They wrapped the body of Ananias in cloth, carry him out of the city, and bury him. The crisis, it seems, is over, but a clock has begun to tick. 3 hours pass. For 3 hours, the community sits in the shadow of what has just occurred. The atmosphere is thick with shock. And then, footsteps are heard at the door. It is Sapphira. She walks into the room, entirely unaware of the grave that has just been dug for her husband. She expects to find Ananias bathed in the glow of the community's admiration. She expects smiles. She expects to share in the glory of their supposed sacrifice. Instead, she walks into a room of people staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. Peter stands. He looks at the widow, knowing the secret pact she made, knowing the lie she carries on her tongue. He offers her a single, solitary chance to dismantle the illusion. He points to the silver, or perhaps names the sum. "Tell me," he asks her, "was this the full amount you and your husband received for your land?" The tension in the room is excruciating. The entire community holds its breath. Will she confess? Will she sense the weight in the air and speak the truth? Sapphira looks at Peter. She holds her nerve. "Yes," she replies, "that was the full amount." The trap snaps shut. The pact is sealed. Peter's voice is heavy with the tragedy of her choice. "Why did you and your husband secretly agree to test the Lord's Spirit?" he asks. He points toward the door. "The men who have just buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out too." Instantly, she falls at his feet. The breath leaves her lungs. The young men return, find her dead, and carry her out to be buried beside her husband. The story of Ananias and Sapphira stands as one of the most unsettling narratives in the New Testament. It is a sharp, jagged edge in a text otherwise defined by grace and forgiveness. As we read in the Good News translation, the immediate result was profound. Great fear fell on the whole church and on all who heard about these things. But why? Why such absolute severity? Perhaps it is because the early church was entirely reliant on trust. In a hostile world, their authenticity was their only defense. Ananias and Sapphira did not merely tell a falsehood about finances. They introduced the very hypocrisy of the religious and political elite, the very performative piety Jesus had so fiercely condemned, straight into the heart of the new sanctuary. They treated the sacred as something that could be managed, something that could be manipulated for social gain. The narrative leaves us looking into the quiet, terrifying space between what we claim to be and what we truly are. It asks a question that resonates long after the echoes of those heavy footsteps fade from the Jerusalem streets. When we approach the divine, do we come as we are, or do we come clutching a carefully rehearsed script, hoping that heaven, like the crowd, can be fooled? If you enjoyed this story, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. There are many more stories from Scripture over tea still to explore. You can also turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And if this story meant something to you, feel free to share it with someone else. Thank you for listening.